Good morning, we're gonna go ahead and call our project management meeting to order for this morning. We'll do quick introductions here at the table. I'm Jenny Knight, the city administrator.
Oh, I'm Sarah Whitford, city planner.
Matt Robertson, city engineer.
Tyler Seaman, the building official. Justin Schnitzel, public works director.
So first, we have a discussion on a potential easement access from 325 West. Anyone here for that item, please come up to the table.
Yeah.
Here, come on up to the table, join us, please. So if I got the property right, this is your property?
That's
here?
one.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us what it is that you're hoping to be able to accomplish?
I'm trying to buy that little piece of property, the 10-12,
10-12?
yeah, to get access to that lot,
This park?
because it's too. The property is too big and there's no way to get in. So, I'm just. How many trees is
Required for
required for
the,
that drive through?
and then you're gonna make an arrangement with this property. Okay,
That's what I recommended the other day with flag lot standards.
Oh, so
He's not creating a step.
yeah. So it's do you just wanna get a driveway through
Yes.
10-12? Are you gonna buy the whole lot or just?
No, I guess little piece that. They just bought the house.
Okay,
I tried to buy it before, but you know.
so it's just to get access. So you just want a driveway, just a driveway back to this piece right here?
Yes.
But are you proposing to do anything with this piece or keep it the way?
Well, I don't have nothing on mine right now. I just wanna have that lot, maybe separate and give it to one of my kids.
Flag lot,
Cause at that point, then we're talking something a little different. If you were going to try to break off that back piece and build a home and like subdivide it, then we'd have to. I mean, you'd have a subdivision, have to do a flag lot. If you just want a driveway and you're working with 10-12. Just do a purchase and access easement.
yeah, you can, we just need to make sure that the width is appropriate if it did turn into a flag lot.
Right.
We need to make sure the setbacks from 1014 don't encroach on that space. Obviously, these property lines don't align exactly with on GeoGizmo, so we would want to make sure that there's an appropriate setback. Which should be to the property line. Is it 30? I'm trying to remember, I determined, was it 30 feet for flag access, 28?
it was something close to 30,
Yeah.
because we needed to keep utilities separate, and then that would be. But the additional offset, make sure that
So
we
we
don't
don't
go right up to the property line.
let's look and see how much.
But if you're gonna buy the land, if you're actually gonna purchase property.
But-
Um,
Yeah, I don't know how many feet they require to get an access.
10-12,
yeah,
right?
that's it right there.
So there's 149 here, so depending on where the house.
There should be enough, is it? 100-foot frontage is required.
Yeah, this gets a little sticky though, if he's gonna. What's the best way, I
If
guess?
he kills or buys it, if he's buying it. The standard, I would suggest that you do a 30-foot
Yeah,
and And then that cleans it up. If there's 140 foot of frontage, that still gives 100 foot of frontage.
Yeah, I think so too.
Um,
But can
property.
you buy 30 feet? I mean, you get
So
separate
there's-
ownership and might need to do subdivision
I s-
with the other parcel, so
Yeah,
it's not
okay.
just another.
That's true.
That's what I was wondering, are you creating a new parcel or are you gonna try to join it with 1091?
Well, that's what I would think you should
It would need
do,
to
a lot line adjustment and do it into 1091.
Yeah,
And then if you ever wanted to come back and do a flag lot, then it's the whole subdivision
Right.
process.
Right, and
I
then
think-
it's set up so that could be done in the future.
I think you're right, but with that, he'll probably have to do, plat amendment, because 1012
Is
is
in the
subdivision.
subdivision.
Yeah.
1091, I don't think is, right?
I don't think so.
What's on in is that?
I think it's. I'm positive it's all residential, but I don't know if it's our.
Yes, it's RE 15.
It is 15, okay.
Yeah, you're
Okay, thank you.
right.
So
So,
this isn't in a subdivision,
right, but the
But
10
the 1012
is,
is in the 9th subdivision.
so I think you'd have to do a plat amendment.
Okay,
So I'd get a surveyor, contact a surveyor, get them on board. Explain to them what you wanna do. And then they can submit their plat amendment to the city.
and so is 30 feet, what would, from the property line?
From this north property line, 30 feet.
Yeah,
We just want to make sure if they do, yeah, if he does subdivide eventually, that it's.
I'd be worried about granting an access that isn't
Yeah,
accessible for a flag lot, just, for future use, that can get really complicated.
yeah, right.
I just try not to buy a lot because I don't wanna make him have a small yard.
Yeah, so he would need to be able to maintain his side yard setback, which is at least 10 feet. I didn't pull up our code, let me get that up.
What's the minimum width for the driver?
30 feet.
30 feet.
30 feet?
So you'd have to have it surveyed to make sure that there's 30 feet here from this property line.
Mhm.
And then there's enough space for the side setback on of, let's double check
And
it.
eyeballing it, it looks like,
Should be,
fine, but looks like they have at least 50. Yeah,
so
15, yeah,
so
so
10 feet. So you'd need 40 feet. At
There.
least from here before the house. If there's that much
But
space.
you would,
It is a lot. I mean, I don't, I mean, I would like to buy the mouse, but he doesn't wanna lose
yeah,
his yard, so.
Yeah,
So he's maybe.
You would have to buy 30 feet minimum. That's because if you ever build another house on that lot,
Mhm.
the utilities are gonna have to run up that drive approach. And
Actually,
you have to have sewer and all that.
actually, my house is in that property, in that, utilities. yeah.
Right,
but
but
it,
if you
Yeah.
ever wanted to put another lot,
I understand, yeah.
I don't think we ever quite adopted it, but we had those.
oh, I forgot.
Oh.
At least light bulb to it, somewhere over there.
What's that?
It's light, pole in that property. A light bulb.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, but
On this-
it's not on the other side, by my fence. Right there. Yeah,
there's a light pole back.
oh,
then that
power goes down that property line.
Yeah, towers.
That's right.
and the pole is like 20 feet from the property line. To to the fence. I was thinking something,
This, the utility easement for the power run north-south.
mhm,
Yeah, I can pull up that fancy map,
Is that, you think that's 30 feet between that power pole and that property line?
I think so, I didn't measure it, but it's what I was thinking about what we need.
Well. Again, he can neck down his access once it's
To his property?
to his property.
Utilities can run on either side of the power.
Yeah, I mean, but he just has to show that 30 feet so that. At least. That's what our standard says.
so. Right there. Yeah, pole. Oh, yeah, you can see it. It doesn't really show up there, but. On this one, it's like. That's right there. So it's,
It's obviously it's overhead, there's nothing underground.
yeah, so. But that looks to me like it's, you probably put the utilities north of the pole.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Looks like there's room.
picture that Tyler's got up shows there's quite a bit of room.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll do it on the one over here, I'll put it, it's still room.
So that's why I was thinking maybe from the property line to
you
the
got,
back wall.
to the pole, yeah, you've got about 30 feet there, at least that's what I'm measuring.
The property line right there.
Yeah,
That
this is something.
I don't know what that dark stuff is.
Yeah, it's, they have like a little
They
garden
want a
there.
garden.
Oh, okay.
So as long as that split rail is the property line.
Yeah,
Then it's about 30 feet right there.
that 30 feet, that probably works, so from the light pole over to the fence would be kind of your
If
access.
it is a little bit more or a little bit less, that will be okay.
Just, we wanted to.
Not less than 30 feet, it has to be 30 feet.
So you could go slightly beyond the telephone pole and. And the access should still work. It seems like there's enough room to get utilities through.
So it's 30 feet of land, however wide you make your driveway
Right,
is up to you, that's private property. Okay, but on the plat, it has to show 30 feet, or meet code.
sorry, trying to pull. That drawing, that we did in the city centers. Drawing.
So the application would be to the city. You would apply, start website here. A lot line adjustment within a subdivision.
So we do show, so we do actually show 28 minimum, till 28.
Oh, so 28.
28, yeah,
I knew we had talked about 28 before.
yeah. If it's just for one lot, it's 28, if it's a shared between like two flags, we went 38, but 20, so 28.
Okay.
So does this include the plat amendment then, this application, because it's an subdivision?
Yes, this is the lot line adjustment application within a subdivision. So that's on our website. You'll apply for that. You have it surveyed, you have it
Perfect.
diagrammed, then you'll come in and apply for this.
Okay. Well, line adjustment.
And I believe that we can do that at the administrative authority level. I don't think it goes through planning commission. So you'd come back to this meeting after you have it drawn up.
Well, I have to talk to him first. see
Yeah,
if-
you have to see if you right.
But this one was very important, that way I can tell
You know
him
exactly.
what exactly she wants.
Yeah.
And after I figure he agreed, so I come back.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for us?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Right. Our next agenda item is potential commercial development on parcels located at approximately 765 North Harrisville Road. We'll have extra chairs. Like. Good morning, we're well,
Good to be with you again. Back again.
12 hours later.
Yeah, 12 hours later again. So to the Glade McCombs. Well, we appreciate your time this morning. So this is basically on the corner of 89 Wall Avenue. And so it's already zoned commercial. What we're proposing here is a commercial flex property space with commercial buildings. And so, as you can see, we've drawn in 18 potential units. We've put enough parking in here. Your standard varies depending on the commercial usage of the property. We considered about one parking spot per 400 square feet. And so, but we also calculated, part of that calculation includes 2 parking spots in the units. Each of these units has a roll-up door. So they front a roll-up door, so the blue line on the front of the is a roll-up door, so they could park inside. And
Is that the only access from? Do they have a man door on?
there is a man door. Yeah, there will be a man door on those. So as you can see, we have quite a few public parking spaces up front. One of the challenges with this design was just being able to utilize the property without having, a large turnaround. And so we applied kind of an interesting concept here, and we did a roundabout. And so the access will be off of that frontage road out of front of the property. And then we put turnarounds here, or we put fire department stubs so that they could turn around. Little spurs for that, and then the roundabout here at the end. And so that's the basic concept. We have some additional thoughts that we're working on. As you know, Javier's owns the motel next door. And we have not met with them yet. Our thought was we thought about just going the other direction. There's a couple of challenges of that.
Yeah, sorry, the other direction meeting.
Well, we thought about doing an entrance here off of Wall. The challenge with that is we're pretty close to the intersection. So we might have challenges with UDOT there. And we're pretty sure we will have challenges there.
Yeah.
And so that may not even work anyway. And so what we decided is to let the project stand on its merit with existing access off of that frontage road.
You got.
So this concept plan is proposing the access to be on.
Exactly, only access. That will
That's
be-
a single access.
Yeah. And we will meet with Javier's and talk to him, but again, I don't know with the UDOT constraints, whether that would even be a consideration.
There's already access off of walls, some sort of shared access with something that's already existing is probably more feasible with UDOT than trying to get an additional access.
So they.
Yeah, we would have to negotiate with the storage units and with Javier's, because we would actually go across both of those properties if we went the Wall Avenue direction.
So we've met with UDOT a number of times on this.
Okay.
And this is their preferred access, obviously, because it's the furthest from the light.
So I mean, right there where the dirt
Yes.
path is.
This is their preferred access for UDOT, right? But so UDOT can't eliminate an existing access.
Right.
But they can deny future access, so you're potentially increasing the use, which triggers a new review cycle for UDOT for that access. So technically, they could say that's increasing the traffic flow for that access.
Right.
And technically, you're not changing the use, it's still commercial use,
Right.
but you're
But the-
decreasing the amount of traffic that's coming there.
They're not changing the use for zoning, but they are changing the use of what it is right now, because there's nothing there right now. So I think it would trigger you review if they
Yeah.
had that access.
Yes, I agree, it would for sure trigger UDOT's review.
But I think that would be. I mean, I think that the
That's-
city's preference
Yes.
would be to access off the wall.
The issue we have with this proposal is our code for commercial access only allows within 150 feet. For access.
It's under commercial manufacturing, rate, it might not be.
At 11-13-06, so.
So. Within 150 feet of a state road. So. What that looks like here is you have to be within 150 feet of of Highway 89. I'm not sure what that distance looks like. That's not an improved road with curb gutter and sidewalk and all that either.
But that's already, yeah, that's already zoned commercial. Yes. Yes, and that is the primary access for the property right now. So,
Right.
Yes, you could apply for a variance. Because access is something that state code includes, you're guaranteed, properties are guaranteed access, right? If you have extenuating circumstances. But the concern for the city is certainly, and you're well aware of this corner.
oh, sure.
Once we have development in this corner. What is that? How's that gonna benefit? What does that look like, right?
Yeah.
And that's a substandard road for that kind of development. I would
That road
say
access for sure.
road access would be inadequate for that area, which would be difficult. I have some concerns, some serious concerns just about the layout in general. I think access is the most important thing to consider right now. Trying to figure out if it's possible to get wall access, that would be preferable. Rural access, also, I don't think we can count any of the parking inside the building as parking. These types of, generally, those are loading bays, so you wouldn't want parking in front of your loading bays. And so how many total parking spots are there?
It shows on the top right of the drawing.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice the notes.
There's 55, okay, so that's not bad. Depending on the use, but this layout having. Blocking it's usually the way those units are used, those would be bays that are being used for loading and unloading, and I don't see a customer. Yeah, that would be interesting,
It's a pretty typical design. We've seen this design used all through the state of Utah.
Right, but if you, yeah, just
parking
wondering,
in front of the bays, I haven't seen that.
I'm just wondering too, yeah, if you're saying there's parking inside the building, you're counting 2 per unit, but then you have visitor or guest parking
Yeah, so we can.
blocking that parking.
Yeah,
I think that seems,
but we don't we'd have to look at the use to see exactly how many spaces are needed, and counting space inside the building probably isn't. But may not be necessary, I guess we'd look at that and see if that's even necessary.
So where you have the standard, I mean, obviously there's some pretty good. there's some pretty good variableness between what you require in commercial. So when we're designing this, do you have a recommended minimum for this kind of commercial development for parking?
Well, I think I would look at, I think of your intended use, so it would really, if you don't have enough parking, that would just limit your ability to rent it to different people, so.
Right.
I would look at how you intend, who your market is, and make sure you have adequate parking for your market, because when they come in for their building permit, they may be lost because of parking. I don't know, do you agree? I would say that's a general, I mean, it's better to know what you're building for before you build it, but if that's not, if it's released, you don't know that, then I would just make sure you have enough parking for who your targeted market is.
Cause what are we considering? So I guess flex space could be, all,
They can
Yeah,
go anywhere, yeah.
yeah, it's pretty big range.
It's pretty,
The
pretty
uses.
wide.
is that 11, 13, and 30? 30 fire department?
Yes, we're trying to find the setback to
Oh,
residential.
setback, yeah.
Yes,
Rear setback to residential is 20 feet.
well, the rear setback to residential, so.
Yeah,
It's just.
Yeah, it's gonna be a residential zone. I don't think we're backing, I don't think we border any residential zone.
yeah,
So just gonna modify Michelle's probably.
that's her she's.
It's commercial.
But her neighbor, so all this stuff, if you go to Geo Gizmo again. All this down, so this 787's residential. So any any buildings right here would be abutting a residential zone.
Okay.
So this stretch right here would
This
have to have
altogether
that setback.
the buildings would have to be set.
So we'd require 20 foot along all of those.
Yeah.
And then, either a berm or there's, screening stands,
Which are also,
not saying.
the screening requirements are.
Yes.
11,
I just go to the 1113. I'll have most of what you guys need, that 1113. Chapter there.
That doesn't bring up the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Which one? The water? Yeah.
Yeah, and the water, we're aware of the. No secondary water being available in this is all gonna be xeriscaped. And we'll have to, obviously, we don't have Bonavista Vista here, but. We'll have to talk to Bonavista Vista about it.
They've come out with a circumstance of absolutely zero commercial water from here on out.
They've been, cause it used to, and you could talk with some play, but it used to be where if it wasn't possible and you showed, what the use would be, that they may allow it in some commercial, but recently they haven't been allowing it at all.
Yeah.
But you could have that conversation with them.
I think from another planning issue. I think you're gonna be limited to who you can rent these units to based on. Just
Proximity to
proximity,
residential.
well, just visual, there's not gonna be any visual. My words are failing me today, I'm sorry. From the highway,
I see,
you're not
marketing
gonna-
standpoint,
yeah,
it could be
from a
difficult
marketing
for
standpoint, you're
people
not
are
gonna-
looking for
Thank you.
some sort of storefront, I
Yeah,
mean,
we don't
it's great work.
We don't anticipate being able to rent any. I don't perceive any retail traffic going in.
Right.
My hunch would be that you'd be fall under the services more than retail.
Yeah,
Yes.
services, maybe, I mean, obviously dance studio, they seem to go in every flex space that is around.
Not gonna get one of those drive-through drink places, which also love the flex space, I've noticed.
And something with that, yeah, dance studio, that would be rough access for how many kids going in and out of the dance studio. Out of the dance,
Every
and I know the traffic, that could be.
What are
The streets, right?
some of the square footages of these? Curious.
Units 1 through 9 are all about, those are all about, 2,000 square feet. Actually, they're a little over 2,000, they're about 2,200 square feet. The ones on the right vary, I can pull them all up, but they're right around, all of the ones on the left side are around 2,500 square feet, including 10. Obviously 11 through 18. They get shallower, but they also get wider. So we've tried to maintain some square footage there, but those roughly probably average about 1,500 square feet, 12 to 1,500.
And would this be the build to suit type of flex space if you got rental or lease people that wanted multiple?
Yeah, these will be built without any demising walls. So they'll be built as just an open shell. And then we'll probably put these up for sale first and see who would want to buy them as a condo unit. So these will be built as with condo capabilities. And then we'll subdivide them as required. But that's basically so it'll be a plain vanilla shell until we put demising walls in later.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that brings up, again, back with the water, and this is where Bonavest was having issues. Essentially, how do you water the landscaping that's a standalone meter on a HOA for the entire complex?
It would be.
Or is it, and they don't wanna do a standalone meter that's not tied to an address? So there's really no address to just the landscaping. And then each lot, if you're trying to individually sell them, each building would have to have its own separate.
Each building will require its own separate meter, sure, for
Right.
for colors.
So then, if you're trying to water with culinary, how do you do that?
Yeah, we would have to have, I'll talk to Bonavista and, yeah,
That's
Chase through
kind of another reason that they're struggling with that.
I'm sure you're aware, Glade, I think the city's vision for that corner, if it would ever work out, would be a whole redevelopment with the Javier lease, right? That would be something attractive and beneficial, but I know that that's been a tough go with them.
yeah. I mean, we'd love to obviously see the motel go away for our development. The motel, one of the propositions that we're gonna put up to Javier is, while we've got, our excavators in there, it'd be pretty easy to take down that motel. And we'll negotiate with them in terms of, we might even, try to acquire some of their land. But, we just wanted to see what the overall feeling was of this kind of development before we go to the extent of doing that. Because we know that from talking with the realtor who's listing this property, he's got a pretty deep relationship with Javier's. He hasn't been real open to doing anything on this property, as you were aware. So we're not sure how much headway we'll make there. But we'll do whatever we can. We'd love to clean up the whole area, and get rid of the motel. He doesn't use really any of the. So where his property sits, could you go to the GeoGizmo? So where his property sits. This is about all that he uses. There's very little use on any of this property. And of course, he's not using the motel, or he's restricted from using the motel right now. So this is not utilized. So, that little, that little usage right there is about all he uses on that property. And so he may be very open to it, but, there again, he may not.
We would highly encourage a conversation there.
Yeah.
This has been a discussion for quite a few years.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked to his realtor about is he would really like to see a concept on what that entrance would look like. So his suggestion was bring a good concept drawing, what you would like the access to look like. And he's very visual, and he would want to see that in order to approve it. But again, you know, we wanted to get kind of a feel for you about Wall Avenue and what the possibilities are. As you can see, we've designed, if you'll go back to the design real quick. We designed the project so that we could very easily, we could very easily change the access. We think that we'll keep an access here regardless. But if we are able to negotiate an access here, that would become kind of a primary access. And we've designed it so that we can accommodate that. The only thing that might be affected by that is this detention basin. And if we're able to acquire any of the property over here, we'll have to work out something else with detention. Maybe we change detention to over here. So we'll have to modify that. But the design has been intentionally created so that we could very easily accommodate another access.
Say, let's just put it out to the universe. You had a great discussion with Javier and you acquired some of his property. Would your concept plan to be to extend the flex space commercial? Or would you then go into a different type of commercial use?
Yeah, if you'll go back to the GeoGizmo, I'll kind of tell you what our hope is. So what we would hope to do is we would hope to maybe acquire this piece right here. And so we would hope to acquire this piece right here, but maybe also right along here. So depending on how much we could acquire from them, we may extend flex space onto that property. I think the biggest likelihood is that if we could acquire the piece that the motel is on, then we would just push that out a little bit, you know, into that motel property. It doesn't give us a lot of width. Obviously, that's pretty narrow. So it doesn't help us a lot to acquire the motel except for this piece, you know, so I can see that piece being incorporated very easily. And we might be able to get 1 or 2 units in there. It's not gonna be certainly, you know, much of an expansion. It's mostly gonna be for access.
So from a future planning, that's a signalized light on a state road. So flex space is kind of the least use, the lowest use for that. I mean, typically for a signalized light on a state road, you're looking at retail, you're looking at somebody that,
Something different.
yeah, stoplights stop people. And so
Sure.
anytime you stop people, that's where you see your businesses that are your retail side. So that's why I hesitated. If you're going to expand the project and acquire more property, we'd sure like to see something different than flex space in that area.
You know, I appreciate your concern there. I think our concern is we just don't see a lot of. If we could acquire anything from him, I don't see it being a pretty wide swath. I think it's gonna be pretty narrow. And if you consider that has to be used for access and some other use, like a retail store or something like that, I just don't know that you're gonna have that kind of width. You know, I just don't think that there's not a lot of width there. You also have this piece, which is owned by the storage units. You know, if we could maybe work out something with them, or maybe you get a little more here, but there's just not a lot of width to accommodate both access
It's a messy,
and retail.
messy space.
It is messy.
And I mean, it'd be wonderful if Javier was interested in a complete rebuild.
Yeah.
And just redo the entire corner, clean it up and keep the restaurant in a
And maybe you keep
newer
the,
fashion.
and maybe you keep the restaurant, you know,
Mixed in
rebuild the
with something
restaurant
bigger,
and something next to the restaurant.
Yeah.
That would, I think, be the ideal.
That would be.
But, you know, depends on how those negotiations go.
Try and find the right. Well, if buyers knew that corner was available, they might be more willing to negotiate. It's kind of letting people know. Cause it is a good piece of property.
And certainly we're not involved in the purchase and sale of private property, right? That's not our role. Our goal is to apply our standards to a concept plan, which you
Right.
brought to us. So It's not our favorite concept plan. But,
So it's not your favorite concept plan
yeah,
in terms of strictly because of access or mostly because of
Access and use, access and use. I
Well,
would
what other
say.
use would you recommend in this area? Because I just don't know what other kind of commercial buildings you could put in this area that would have much more appeal.
without the corner, yes.
Yeah, without the corner.
Yeah, as it stands.
I mean, and what we're dealing with is what's there now and what we have, available to us.
Right.
So what we look for is obviously highest and best use based on what's there. And I don't know that you can get, I mean, flex space does do well, it rents well, it sells well. It accommodates a lot of different uses and it provides services for the community. But I don't know what else, what other kind of commercial building you'd put in this area that would have more appeal, from a general public standpoint.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of conversation about this parcel for a number of years.
Yeah,
And it's a difficult piece.
yeah, it is difficult.
I think our recommendation would be to maybe have that conversation with Javier, see how that goes, and then maybe,
Have that conversation with Bob Vista for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
water's gonna be. You end all be all in this area, if you can't get water to it.
and also I know in past discussions with this property, we've talked about utilities that. Do we have
Yeah.
any?
Verify, cause
I was just gonna
there's
say
a
that.
central weaving line, I don't know if
Yeah,
It doesn't,
I think it goes
it's not on the
I think
property.
it goes along the south
south boundary.
edge of that property or maybe even into the storage.
Yes, it is storage.
The storm drain, if you have your detention somewhere down on the bottom where you're showing, you'll have to at least work with those property owners to get it tied into the storm drain, because your closest would be over in the UDOT right away, right along the road. That storm drain we have right there, that'd be your closest point. Yeah. Like, and Ryan, do you see any, or have any feedback, fire access wise?
No, access is okay, the issue we're gonna have is. You're building a big building with no sprinklers in it, depending on your use, if you put a. Cabinet shop in the middle of like one of those sections, you're gonna be sprinkling the whole thing. And if you don't know your use yet, and you don't know where your firewalls are, that could be we could be tearing up concrete to put in sprinklers eventually. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and, part of this will be, like I say, we intend to list these for sale first.
Yeah.
Before we even start building, maybe do some pre-sales on. And so we would hope to know, some usage.
Well, you will have to have firewalls in separating. That's a big space for no firewalls.
Yeah, well, all of the demising walls will be a firewall.
Okay.
Yeah, so all of those will be a firewall, but again, it will be built open,
That's the,
an
yeah,
L
right.
shell, and then, but any dividing walls will be a firewall, for sure.
If yeah, so 4 through 9, and maybe 1 through 3, those look about the same width, right, or length,
Mm-hmm.
are they 100 feet long?
They are,
Okay, so. So you're gonna have to have another entrance to the rear as well, or egress pathway, unless they're sprinkler. Cause you're over 75 feet of travel distance. To have egress.
so man access.
Yeah, you either have to have man door at the back or the middle, well, you're gonna have to have it in the back based off how those laid out. Or,
Well, and if we have to bring those forward, right now it's a 10-foot setback right now. So if we have to go to 20 foot, we'll have to put a door back there anyway. Okay, well, and
I would go ahead, I think, and get a pre-application meeting with UDOT. Just, their normal Tuesday meeting, just to run it by them, see what they'll require. Okay. For the, well,
After you meet with.
I guess after you meet with Javier,
Yes,
just
okay.
in relation to if they're gonna get that access to wall. Right?
Yeah.
If you can work out that access to wall, I'd talk with them. Sorry, I just had my head that they're gonna.
Going the whole avenue, right?
Yeah.
I just didn't want. you to
But it's
like
good to
this
see.
concept.
But it's kind of to me, Javier and UDOT, it's might as well talk with both, see how possible it is.
So, so just to, I guess just to. Kind of, for our understanding, so if we're not able to work out any access with Javier's. Are we, are you saying that we wouldn't be able to get access? Maintain the access that exists on Fred Road?
Under our current code, the 150 feet requirement. To the state road.
They'd have to be asking for a variance.
You'd have to apply for a variance.
They're about 400 feet from. They're about 400 feet from where, North Harrisville Road swings up to 89.
So you would have to apply for a variance for that, under this concept plan.
500 or 600 feet to the state.
And what section of the code addresses that 150 feet?
1113, the last section, 1113.
Access in 060.
And what are Harrisville standards as far as, just, I'm worried about the road condition itself.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. What is required as far as, improvements on that road to develop.
That's a good question. Because it's a pretty narrow, unimproved road. Going all the way back there.
I mean, obviously their frontage would need to be improved, but that's
Yeah.
not a lot of frontage here.
Right.
Then you're increase, if this is your sole single access, you're increasing this traffic pattern here.
That would be my concern. With.
Yeah.
What would you consider minimum width there?
Well,
I mean, what is that pavement area now?
looks like it's. Like 17 feet or so. I mean, our. Standard's 36 feet of asphalt or 32. We have a 32-foot section. In commercial area, I mean, residential areas, not commercial.
For commercial, probably 36.
Yeah,
There's
I just don't know what they're gonna have, yeah. Cause your commercial manufacturing area, commercial is that, 36 feet of asphalt. Local residential, you can move it 32 feet. Or. Yeah.
And how many of those is the Tate's property, is that the only one that's some commercial other than this space?
This this
Residential.
begins it's actually an agricultural zone. That side. It's 32, 36. Which is about business.
Yeah, that's, I mean, definitely in front of your, but ideally, we want that road improved all the way up to N Harrisville Road. I know that'd be a big cost for your development.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it, I'm just trying to see. It's kind of a mess over there.
Depending on what space used, that could be a significant issue, we'll be having some 2 feet of asphalt accessing.
Yeah, for sure.
Being specifically financed.
Well. Our preferred access. Would be off the wall, get that. So I don't know,
I agree with you there.
you get out, sure. And then you wouldn't have that expense of. Improving that roadway, cause I think we would need that improved, like if you go to. Pull up Google Maps. And drop street view right there, it's yeah, just drop it right there by there, yeah. You can kind of see. That's about, that mailbox, I think is where they're kind of showing that access, somewhere around there. But if you pan around, you can see. The limitations that we're dealing with right there. That's hard to get a standard road. And even go back, looking at it the other way.
Is it, would it be possible to have have another access point created here? To 89, I know that would involve UDOT,
I think it's
Two feet.
the angle that work.
Their right-hand turn lane
just,
where the intersection starts right there. You know, this route, just a bit of history here, this used to be the highway, N Harrisville Road used to be the highway. So this is the original guardrail from that highway years ago, and so no, they closed off that access a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't see
They're not-
feasibly how they could connect them safely with the intersection right there, and then the approach angle just makes for, I
yeah,
don't see them allowing
I mean, they're
it.
the authority on that. so
Yeah,
honestly,
I mean, you can always ask, but I see it as a long shot.
yeah,
certainly that would be preferable to the city than you go using the residential street.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right, basically. So one other question, just in terms of utilities, so do you know, Justin, do you know if we have water all the way down here? I mean, is there a water line in here and?
Yeah, there's culinary water line, there's the ditch. The costly ditch that runs to the Tate property. How far that extends over into the other property, I don't know.
It appears to dead end on that property.
Yeah, and then, but there's no water shares.
Right,
And trying to purchase water here, as you know, for the western, it's not.
well, I might have some.
Well. There's availability,
Yeah,
You're gonna have
it's
some
not that,
left over on that.
that line.
I will have some left over,
But
yeah.
then that also does bring
Right
up,
behind you.
that does bring up the issue of. You
It's
doing,
a sore subject right now.
you're doing a detention pond and an entire pumping system.
Or an irrigation system.
For
If, yeah,
tiny irrigation system.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think there's there's obviously like electric there, either overhead or, it's probably all overhead right there.
Yeah.
It looks like poles.
we're good.
Okay. And we know where we have to tie in sewer. I mean, sewer is gonna have to be tied in over on the storage unit. There's a connection.
And that'll be,
There's also
that'll
a
be
storm
central.
drain there, right? So we have a storm drain there too on the storage unit property.
where's the?
If you bring up your gizmo. So there is. Right here, there's a storm drain grill right here. And the sewer line also comes along there.
So that storm drain is probably a private storm drain or the
For the
storage.
storage units,
We have
that goes up and ties into,
a public storm drain that comes down, it comes down right here and then it comes down this property line
okay,
and out. That's what I was saying. I think your best bet would be tying in to the public storm drain out here.
okay.
They just have like a private retention system right there going on this.
Yeah, I don't know, like if my maps show, some of their private storm drain through here, it doesn't show anything over here, it makes sense that there'd be a box over there, so
Yeah, it's pretty
they've
big,
got it
right?
connected somehow.
Would you say that Greg probably?
They just punched it with central livers on it. Yeah.
Unsurprising.
Yeah, right.
But again, I know that 591 lot has a lot of troubles with water coming out those storage units.
Yeah. And that sewer line. You need to just get, approval from Central Weaver.
Yeah, we've talked to them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other? Concerns or questions?
Not the easiest piece.
No, it isn't.
So just to recap, obviously the city's preference is to access off the wall. But through some kind of a cross-access easement. With storage units and also buffer.
Yeah.
And if that's absolutely not possible. Come back and we'll talk some more, I guess.
And probably looking what kind of improvements to the residential road is
Yeah.
probably.
And what a variance looks like and getting a variance hearing. Set up and all that.
Yeah, what would the time frame be on that? On a variance usually?
Our appeal authority's fairly available. We just held one. Last week. So a couple of weeks out,
Okay,
unless the summer schedule gets full, but our appeal authority's Craig Call.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah, that asphalt looks like it's maybe 19 feet or so. 18 or 19 feet behind.
So is there even space to widen that? Is that what you're questioning
Because,
between property lines?
yeah. Unless that UDOT basin's built on our property.
Yeah, I don't know, that's.
Yeah.
looks like it might be, yeah.
We don't trust the lands on Geogu's.
No.
No.
Geotechnical lines are covered.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
Yeah.
very inaccurate, but yeah, that would be our first recommendation is see if we can go that route.
Okay.
The plat through there is it's weird, right?
It's terrible.
'Cause
You
you-
get on your concept plan.
Yeah, it's all crazy, cause
Yeah.
from where the highway used to
Yeah.
be to where
Mhm.
the it's
To where the app now is.
yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah,
Vacated alley. It's interesting, anyway. So this is showing. I don't know. That maybe we have 53 feet there.
oh, really?
No, I was just looking up here. This says 53, but. But that's 53 from there, I don't know, you're one of those smart surveyors. Going on
Okay.
All right, very good. Thanks for your time.
We have a patient walking. Come on up.
there.
Hi.
So I don't know, it's that piece on, 2550. North and Forest, Pleasant View.
750 west.
Yeah,
What's your name?
Brett, Saturday.
So we tabled this at our planning commission.
Oh,
last
right,
night.
okay, this is.
Okay,
So we had this on our agenda last evening for planning commission and we tabled it.
okay. I didn't realize, I didn't realize.
You were just sent to the meeting,
I
right?
said meeting, yeah, Cease's out, both Cease and Spencer are out of town, so I was sent. So I think we had some comments on that, and there's just a couple things that we wanted to go over on those. You have a site plan.
We might have those in our.
I think I have it here within, this is the, yeah, it's all.
I also put it in the PM.
So, let's see.
Just start with now.
Oh, you know, and Cecil, I think emailed me. Sorry, I gave you all these comments, but I didn't.
I'm gonna let you
I'm
drive.
gonna add that, I was gonna add the red-ons to the plans and haven't sent that over. Yeah, I remember. You emailed me or it was Cecil?
That way they see the red lines on the plan.
Yeah, sorry, I sent the comments in the memo, but didn't have them added on the plans. So I didn't get that too, looking at my screen like this. Okay, sorry. Yeah, do you guys want, I guess, what main questions do you have?
And maybe if you wanna, we can just go over it, start talking comments. I think our biggest concern is on the access, distance on 700 is it 750 north?
Yeah.
West.
Well, 72 west and then,
Is it 50 feet, if I remember right, is that the distance between?
Yeah.
yeah, so let's see,
Maybe scroll down to sheet, like.
this one.
Yeah. So what we're really hoping for with that access off 750 is that you've got, for a truck and trailer to supply the back of the building. And then we do have turnaround even for a 53-foot to go out. And
Right, up through here.
yeah,
Oh,
up through
that's
there
why you
now,
want there.
that's why I
I
want
see.
it. So what we were wondering if we could do
Is
is.
the 50-foot spacing from existing driveways, right, or from another driveway?
Yeah. And so what, I guess my thought was, is that was probably mainly for if it's a commercials up to each other. You like future, cause where that's a residential, I'm not sure if the usage on a residential would dictate the 50 feet where there's like, having issues, you know, with congestion.
Sure.
And so if we were to allow for any future use that we could have a shared drive for that adjoining piece. And then if they did something in the future, we could share that drive. And I think it actually benefits them in the long run.
That's right here.
Yeah, because they're gonna fight into the same thing, you know.
So, cause you have both of those points have that problem.
Yeah,
25,
yeah,
50
if you
and
share one-
750, if you share it on both.
Well, we can deal with, we need to also address the one,
This one.
that one, yeah. And so now I'm just talking the 750 one.
So it's hard with 750 cause correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think a residential and a commercial can share access.
Not currently, if their use
If
changes.
their use changes.
Yes.
So currently now we would keep it like it is, and then if their use changes to commercial, then we could have a shared one.
Okay.
So I guess what my thought is that,
This home's going away,
yeah, that's going away.
that home's going away, we're talking about this driveway right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is kind of their secondary driveway.
And so my thinking is if they did go commercial, they're gonna kind of be fighting the same thing if they wanted two accesses. You know what I mean? And this would allow them to have one, and I think it cleans up the problem long-term better.
I'm trying to think, the residential access, so do we have a problem with this? I wasn't worried about it on 750, I was more worried about 2550.
It just, it came, it kind of was just that same requirement. I don't have as big of an issue with this, especially where this is rarely used, right?
Yeah,
Like it's a secondary to their back.
yeah.
Oops, okay, there.
Remember, I thought it was,
We made the comment about both of them.
Yeah, and so this one over here, we'll address on that also, we'll get with,
This one.
The neighbor's
Yeah.
property.
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't. Like, we made the comment because both of them are within that 50 feet of an existing driveway.
But I think it only applies on 2550. I don't think it applies on 750
It's
because
residential.
it's residential. I'm not positive, but I
I know, I think the code just
it just kind of stays.
basically
Yeah,
says.
yeah, so I wasn't sure either how it.
2550 is what we're more concerned about.
It's
Well,
11.0,
so we also have to understand 550 is Pleasant strong, there's no really, so we'd have to.
Yeah, and that was my question too, is do we adhere to your standard or their standard for that?
Well, it's accessing property on Harrisville, so the
It's
access to
accessing their
Harrisville.
road.
But it's not the road, it's the access. The access is actually on Harrisville's property.
I guess I viewed it as the accessing their.
Onto the street.
Onto the street, it goes
Yeah.
both ways,
Yeah.
but
Ideally,
ours
they're-
would apply as well.
I was gonna say, ideally, we align in that,
Align,
right?
hopefully,
Yeah, they're probably pretty similar in their requirement there. I mean, we really would like to see less access on 2550. It's just that not ideal to have a lot of access on that road.
I think, yeah, so 750 west, I think we could say, well, where it's residential, because these are in your commercial. These are commercial requirements here, right?
Yeah,
Driveways must be separated by at least 50 feet from any other driveway. And that's what we got it from any other
Yeah.
driveway, whether on the property or an adjacent property. I mean, I think that could be interpreted as the residential. driveways as
it
well.
could be,
But
but I don't know that I'm
not
concerned
no,
about that.
I agree. So what would be your proposal on 2550?
We'll get work with something on that.
I think if you can work out that one on 2550, then the one on 750, we could.
We can leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone else feels okay about it.
Are you concerned about that? I'm just concerned with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can make a plan.
I'd have a little more about when it's a secondary access.
Yeah,
Non-conforming.
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like, the should have used this.
Right. Okay. Some of the other comments was this,
Yeah, I don't think anything else, maybe.
would everything else make sense? I
Yeah, I
guess?
think everything else was good. I think the only other thing that we,
I think it's 15 or 20.
that's just, I think you have it as 15, is that right?
Yeah.
And I think that 15 as well.
So that, and then it doesn't say what kind of fence is right there, but it has to be,
Price, some type of,
yeah, there's standards. I think we put the code there so you can see
Yeah.
the standards for that.
So are you talking about the putting up a new fence or the existing fence?
Well, if the existing fence meets the standards, you can leave it, but if it doesn't, then you'll have to put up a
It's
new
supposed to be
fence.
like a screening type fence.
Yes, we can look up that. It's,
It's just rail fence.
oh, okay, yeah, and it has to be like 6 feet tall, I think I
Jump back
put
to
the, so we can look that up.
Sorry, which, so.
Just-
Right here, number 5.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
sorry, I didn't put it, sorry,
Sorry, I don't have my.
screening requirements.
So, I mean, there's things that require a setback and retaining wall and such, we'll get that, if you just look at the fence.
It says construct a,
Solid wood, vinyl and masonry wall, minimum height of 6 feet. Okay, so that's a text fence, that would be.
Then Brett, I don't know if on the sewer line coming through, we were gonna run that. I don't see it on this set of plans, but I saw one earlier that had it showing on the rear of the building.
Yeah,
So we've ceased mentioned they're gonna run it through the buildings and stuff up on each.
you want me to change it to just show one lateral coming in, not. one
Not
each.
central, okay.
Yeah, and then we'll bring them up inside the building.
you're talking on the sewer,
Sewer.
now, gosh. Two computers here,
Exhibits shown as individual laterals.
right, but if you're ever going, well, so you're not proposing, this proposal doesn't, it's all gonna be one owner.
Yeah.
Okay, cause if you ever, my only concern there was if you ever wanted to like condominiumize this building and sell off individual things, then you'd have to have a separate lateral for each one.
Oh, okay, all right,
But if
we'll
it's,
discuss that then. But that's the plan is, it's just one, and then as we build it, I mean, it'll be open shell, the whole thing to start, and then, as lease space dictates how it's devised.
Then yeah, you probably wanna do it the way it's drawn so that you can have those laterals separate and the water there, cause the water isn't showing separated.
no, but the water, they typically, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for Bonovis, but they typically just want a master meter and they don't care.
Yeah, it'll still, even on that, it'll all be, if it's demised out, it'll all be owned, but
But
it's just.
there, it'd have to be an HOA or something, I guess. Even if you sold them individually, you'd have to have an HOA for like. For the parking lot maintenance
Yeah.
and
But
that.
the sewer can't fall that way.
The sewer, if you have individual owners, the sewer needs to have separate
Each, okay.
laterals.
Unless it is an HOA.
Right, and if it's just one owner, then they could do one, then they.
I guess it's rented or purchased.
All right, we'll discuss, we're gonna go back to that.
Bonaventure kind of falls under the same thing, if they decide that they're single owner occupied. Then they won't wanna do a master meter, they'll wanna do a single circuit.
So they will want it like the sewer site out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not planning on
Okay.
condominium wise, we plan on just owning the whole, keep it all shit.
Okay, then leasing.
Yeah,
Not sure on this, so you're saying the sewer, even if it's leased, wants a separate lateral?
If they're separate owners, there's stuff.
yeah, so if
But
it's
if
just
it's
one.
one owner, then you
Yeah.
can do it, okay.
Yeah, so the only reason we would change is if we thought there's much of a chance that down the road we condominium wise, we don't.
we show
That's-
everything, like, I know it's flex space thing. Look at a soul shop this one. You got a preschool, so.
That's what I was thinking, is if you get anything with grease and oil.
Yeah, I can do that for each unit inside the building.
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
It's gonna be straightforward.
It is.
Yeah.
And you're, so we'll have to have another hydrant, you have to have a hydrant within 150 feet of our fire department connection.
Okay,
So you'll have to install a hydrant.
where is the closest?
Across the street, on 750 west and 2550.
And it's not within 150.
So I can show you. That's what we just looked up.
It's funny, you think that would
Add
add
it on
on
this corner, on the other side of 2550.
So how do you measure the distance right there?
It's right there. So it's just not even within driving, hard driving.
Cause that's just right across the road from us.
Yeah, so if it's within 150 feet of where we hook up the fire department.
Oh, for on the, building stand, so we have it on this corner, it would be,
Then we need the. Wherever,
is that?
wherever
right there?
we're gonna tie in our hose to supply it. Yeah, you may, even if you're on this corner, you might make it, sometimes it make it out,
Okay.
right, yeah.
I think the other thing we just wanna have a discussion on is our plan for this building is IMP panels, the insulated metal panels. And I don't think they, meet the current standard of having brick or rock. That you have on there, but on some other cities, they've allowed those to go in place of them. I think it gives a much better full product. And I just wondered what your thoughts, if you had discussion on that. We've got some, I mean, they're just elevations and that, there are some buildings around. That have that on, and they actually make a really good building. There's the exercise one that Bailey did up in Pleasant View. There by Slump House and that, and then there's one across from like Peterbilt and Maverick out on.
As
Oh,
long
there
as
it is.
they meet the widths.
And it's supposed to be greater than 12 inches. The panels are supposed to be minimum of 12 inches, I mean, at maximum of 12 inches. How wide are each panel?
Well, you know what, I know they're wider than that, but see, they're broke up, they have a, they're probably about 36 inch.
Okay, but they have a visual
They have a visual break,
within
yeah,
that 36.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's what I would be most worried about. is-
I'm not as concerned about this, but you guys have.
Yeah, our code's probably a little outdated with.
The front definitely does, so if you see,
Yeah.
the front has a, and we haven't decided if it'll be vertical or horizontal, but they're like in probably a 6 to 8 inch slat type thing. The rear, I'll have to find out if they're just, I believe they're more of a smooth textured. Out of 36, so does 100% of the building need to be that, or just the percent?
What's the code say for the front face, don't we have a code that specifies the front facing?
Yes, it's, that was about 20%.
Yeah, 20 to 25%.
So on the front, that's glass that you're showing, I'm just trying, yeah.
Wait, it's glass and then those other, and then it's a different panel that has that text, it has the either horizontal or vertical.
Okay, so there are panels, there isn't any brick or masonry, it's all these.
It's all the IM panels, yeah, correct.
But visually, it
Yeah,
doesn't look like it's a mass of the same.
I mean, that's what they're trying to avoid is
Yeah,
having some
and then
sort
we
of
have the
texture.
awnings and there's even a deck on the second story up top, and then there's open,
Nice.
you know what I mean?
I mean, if you can wrap the same material to the back of the building, I always prefer that, but,
Yeah,
but it looks like you've got 3 sides. Is there color okay? This isn't color specific, right? This is
Not
just
exactly.
material. Okay, so it'll probably be a similar color all the way around,
yeah.
okay. Oh, okay, here we go, looking at this. Let's let that show it, turns to gray.
Yeah, so the 2 sides on the back and the west side, they were hoping the side that faces 750 will be more of a, retail. Something for the showroom or type, and so we do a different finish on that side. There's parking up above, along that side too.
I think the intent of the code is met.
Yeah.
Right. I think like you said, this is,
A visual facade that doesn't
these buildings
look like a.
are a little more typical than when this code was probably written, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be okay with that, I'll have planning commission, commission will do your side.
Okay.
I don't think you
Do you guys see a problem with that, Angie?
I don't have any major concerns or anything.
I think the biggest thing then is resolving the 2550 access, get that ironed out to where it works with everybody, and then we'll send it back to you.
Oh, yeah, no, landscape plan,
Oh, yeah, we'll get that added.
okay.
Yeah.
This is one of our sites that actually does have a
We
secondary.
do have section, yeah, oh, that's awesome, but yes.
Based on our last discussion, that's.
We can actually, yeah. Trees and plants or something else.
Yeah.
You saw the notes, a couple more of the islands and.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I, we are gonna do, even though we have irrigation, it's gonna be kind of zero scape, it's just bushes and trees and plants, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
no,
No,
maybe
maybe
it's
it's
some
some
wise,
yeah.
yeah. So.
Okay. Any other questions for us, or Matt, do you have?
No, I think
anything
that's
other
fair.
than
I think so, just work on those, getting those approvals too, so.
Yeah.
Long as
so
it's,
Yeah, Susan's on those.
Pleasant View, so
Yeah.
all those improvements on 2550 or their street.
Yeah, everything's submitted to them and,
Okay.
yeah, we're working with them on that, so.
that? Just try and have your corrections submitted to us 15 days before
Before,
July 9th. Is our planning commission.
okay, so that's about a week. So, yeah.
Actually, yeah,
Yeah.
the 24th.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey, thanks, you guys.
thank you. And we don't have any other project. Not mind
Yeah.
closing the Zoom.
That's these on this one, you can see those emails now on this one. Oh, Zoom, gosh, I couldn't see.
Just to end that.
Yeah, he was going.
There you go, sorry.